Well, I was going to wait and do updates later today, this evening, after I get some vehicle repairs done, but apparently that's not the case. So let's get to the Czech Republic, Netherlands. This is on CNN. They're going to send reinforcements to Ukraine. They're sending 8.5 billion in weapons to Ukraine. The U.S. is sending another 380 some odd $1 million worth of weapons. It looks like Germany's sending weapons to Ukraine. They're going to use. They're sending heavy missiles. Ukrainian president hints that they need more swift actions on the SWIFT banking system, which would cut off Russia to SWIFT banking. Biden says Putin invasion is bringing Europe and NATO closer, and breaking developments are ongoing. Now, Facebook does have some actual footage of the combat destruction. The Russian military has suffered some major losses during this conflict. The numbers look very high for Russia at this time, and as this conflict breaks out even more, I've been reading articles saying that there has been a lull in the fighting, waiting for Ukrainian President Zelensky to come out and meet with Russia for negotiations. Apparently, that all fell through. At this time, we're looking at the possibility of everything ramping up inside Ukraine. There's been bombs that have been mentioned are being sent that was seen in Ukraine that suck out all the oxygen. Thermal bombs or something like that. Thermal something bombs. Anyway, Czech Republic, we talked about that. Let's go to Fox. This situation is not good. It is not good. There's protests erupting all over the world, standing with Ukraine. The Ukrainian military is apparently delivering some pretty hard blows to the Russian military. So far, the Russian Federation has said that they're going to avoid civilian casualties. I don't think that's going to be the case in the future. I think this has turned into a major conflict, and I think we're going to see some pretty big action. As far as Russia being cut off the systems, we have to remember there is some massive. Looks like I'm experiencing some technical difficulties, guys. As far as hacking, we got to get into the hacking issue. So there's been cyber hacks. We got two forms of war happening right now. I'm trying to go to Fox News and it's just blocked. It's just sitting there spinning. Just give everybody that heads up. I don't know if this is a connection on my end or a connection on globally, but I know there have been cyber attacks on Moscow at this time, and it's been ongoing since the start of the conflict. Now, cyber attacks are very, very dangerous. They are a form of war. Cyber attacks can actually instigate World War III. Looks like air raid sirens explosions heard in Kiev after curfew on third night of the invasion. Like I said, there's going to be an uptick in fighting right now. Massive traffic jam forms. Ukraine tries to flee Poland. This is just crazy. Just crazy. Everybody stand in unity. We want to get into anti-war protests in Tokyo. 20-hour trek by Americans. Finland's U.S. ambassador responds to Russian threats over potential NATO membership. This is the big one. This is the one we have to look at. So, American independent journalist covering. Let's see, we got to get to this. Where did it go? Yeah. Looks like anti-war protests broke out. They just keeps kicking me around because advertisements. Clear back up here. This is the important stuff. Finland ambassador to the U.S. boasted about his country's strong military and said he didn't see an immediate threat from Russia. Officials suggesting military action in the Nordic nation were to join NATO. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova said Finland and Sweden would face some military and potential consequences if they try to join NATO. We are not in the position that we will get scared because of one statement, ambassador said to Fox News. We have one of the best armies in Europe. Okay, so Finland goes and tries to join NATO. This would be an imminent threat to Moscow. As far as the Patriot missiles, systems, and the Finland being that close to the Russian borders, This is another huge uptick in the world stage. If Finland did join NATO, that would put the entire power of the NATO alliance on Finland's side. That would be another move towards the Russian border that I don't think Russia could handle. I think at this time that would possibly enact thermonuclear preemptive strike on Finland and NATO. So that would be the trying to weigh the consequences. Where would this end up? Where would we be if NATO was immediately accepted Article 5 or Article 4 and NATO says Finland's in? Russia would be at a point now with their uptick in Ukraine, with their military advancing. Ukraine would probably be, my opinion, I think they'd pummel Ukraine, civilians or not. I think that we just see a shock and awe World War II type style invasion in Ukraine. Now remember, modern wars, when we invaded Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan, we avoided civilians at all costs. World War II turned into the opposite of that. We didn't want to see this ever happen again. So this type of scenario has happened in Ukraine, happened in Iraq. It happened in Iraq twice. But this is going to be, I think, the what we see what happens in the Nordic states right now, and what NATO's next moves are going to be will determine the future of planet Earth. The greatest crisis we're facing as far as Earth itself is thermonuclear war. This is not a scare tactic. This is factual. So that's something to really pay attention to. What happens in Finland? If Finland decides to and NATO does this, I would suggest being ready, just being ready for nuclear war. That's possibly a limited nuclear strike at that time. If I was to say as a military strategist, say that I was already in a country, had heavy mechanized equipment being blown up. I had the West just promising to just flood the country with arms. Putin's either got, and the Russian Federation has got to either back out or they have to hit those supply lines. And that's where we're going to see an uptick, and then we go from there. But as of now, there is the lull has been lifted because there were supposed to be negotiations, which those have fallen through. So get ready. Get ready. Russia orders military to develop the offensive along all axis. That means if they're going to develop all axis, when those weapons are pushed into Ukraine, you're going to see a massive attack on those convoys coming in with massive weapons. And this is where things get really tense. I know everybody wants to stand with Ukraine, but you guys, we are seriously on. Even Poland sending weapons and munitions in. We are seeing the advancement of this conflict now. I would say to the point of what the next 48 hours is going to entail will be a serious time for the world, and everybody needs to take a step back and realize that we are on the brink of World War III, and this is not. It's not a joke. It is serious, and this is just like I explained. Once the other NATO nations get involved, the Russian Federation has a choice at this time. And I imagine Russia sat back and thought about what they're going to do. They probably have a pretty good plan for this. This was not a fly-by-night attack. We've seen that through the build-up. I imagine they have protocols that are going to follow. Remember that Russia is one of the heaviest armed nuclear nations on planet Earth. The weapons that are being poured in there. It's a bad thing with Ukraine, but the worst scenario with this is by pouring weapons into Ukraine. We learned this with Japan. We learned this in blockading Russian cargo ships that were boarded and seized, and I guess the UK seized one of the Russian cargo ships. Once this type of action starts, we have a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. We had that. So I don't know what, on a military standpoint, where Russia's actually at, the hardware they put in there, how much they can spare on this conflict, and where Russia will have to say, we're to the point where we're just going to launch on NATO. And that may be the end goal. SWIFT, they're getting kicked off SWIFT. Cooler heads are not prevailing. It looks like the military force, the military might's hitting military might. And when you're dealing with major blocks that are nuclear armed, we will. There is a very big possibility for a catastrophic event or a cyber attack that would lead to a preemptive strike with the thermal nuclear arsenal. I want everybody to get that through your heads. I want everybody to understand that. Everybody says, hey, let's go beat the Russians up. Ukraine, yeah, you could beat them up on the ground. That's the way if you're there. If you're outside of Ukraine and you're instigating war with Russia, just remember that fact. That there is some very big teeth inside the Russian Federation. And those teeth are able to sink into the United States, all of Europe, and any other place on planet Earth. And those are called Satan 2 nuclear warheads. So this needs to stop. And the best way to stop that is to halt all military action on both sides, call a truce, and everybody sit down and let's talk. Let's talk. And everybody's going to have to give to get. You know, this is what happens. We'll go back into a Cold War. You guys have never experienced Cold War, younger generation. But we have to figure a place to be at this point. And where we're at now, on the brink of war, on the brink of the entire planet Earth being hit with being under a nuclear attack, is not where we want to be under in any way, shape, or form. Negotiations now need to happen. There needs to be an olive branch extended to Russia immediately by all NATO nations, including the United States. Everybody say we're done. Let's stop this war. What do we got to do? And it's not like their demands are, we need to give Ukraine to them. They're just saying disarm Ukraine, make them a neutral state like Sweden. Let's disarm it. Let's stop the war today. That's the olive branch needs to be extended now. It needs to be done. Stop all hostilities immediately. But just like military contractors never let a good crisis go to waste. Ratings and all that stuff, they have to stop this. Everybody should be suing for peace and telling the leaders to not arm and fund the Ukrainian war. Hand out, stop the war. Just immediately direct lines to the Kremlin and say, we got to stop. Zelensky needs to say, I know everybody wants to be patriotic, but let's stop the war now. Halt all military aggression immediately. And it's going to come to the point where somebody, if it does go in that direction, they're going to have to do that anyway. The United States got to step in and say, we're going to nuke you. It's if they hit Finland after this, and Russia goes and mobilizes their nuclear arsenal, which I've already heard is happening, then the U.S. is going to have to threaten back. NATO's going to have to threaten back, and then we are going to be in a real shooting war. And it's a real nuclear war. So anyway, thanks for watching. That's the updates right now. Go to Facebook. You could type in Ukraine crisis. You can see some videos that are being kind of censored by YouTube, I feel. And kind of get a better idea. But remember, cooler heads must prevail. Thanks for watching 45 News Utah. I'll be updating tonight because this is the ongoing World War III crisis. And I don't care what anybody says, you are on the brink of World War III. Love your family. Get your stuff in order. I can't stress enough to have some sort of bunker, food supply, water supply. Remember, hacks on power grids can happen at any moment. It's just like a military force hitting your electrical grids. We don't know at what time and what point this may happen, if it will happen at all, but there is a possibility of this happening. So you guys get out there, get your family ready, have a bug out plan. Remember, during a nuclear any kind of conflict, if there's any nuclear weapons that are launched, stay in your house 72 hours. Do not leave. Don't go outside. And from there, you can look up ways to survive a nuclear war on YouTube. There's plenty of information that's been passed out through the Cold War era that'll give you an idea how to survive nuclear war. Yeah, this is not Fear Factor. This is not time to Trump ratings. I got 1,700 views on one video. Yay. But the future of humanity is at stake. No matter how hard we are at this how upset we are at this entire crazy world we've entered into, we must all think that the people we love are what's most important. And these guys need to stop and stop now. Thanks for watching.